Hello, and welcome to Preparation Avengers, a weekly podcast with up-to-date impressions on every film in the MCU, leading up to Infinity War on May 4th. I'm your moderator, Thomas Rogers, and joining me this week is Danny DKP Kilpatrick.
Yep, that's the one.
Paul Pebiv Burns.
That's me.
And rounding out our panel from lovely Los Angeles, California, is Alex Idafy Hernandez.
You're not gonna like me when I'm angry.
I don't.
No.
So a few quick reminders for you guys. Don't forget that you can watch the show live every Saturday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time on twitch.tv/Chainsaw Ape. Or if you want to, you can wait until Sunday and watch it on YouTube.
9 p.m.?
What time did I say? Did I say 9 p.m.?
Yeah, you did.
8:35 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on twitch.tv. You could tune in at 9. We're probably going. Few quick reminders. Outside of that one, we aren't really Marvel experts here, so the majority of our knowledge, I know Idafy spent a lot more time than we have, but our knowledge is not the strongest when it comes to Marvel. So
I'm not afraid of fucking up.
that's where we're looking out for you guys here in the chat. If you're in the chat and you're watching this, if you see something that we have wrong or we say something that seems a little questionable, look it up, throw it in the chat. We'll make sure to give you credit for it. You guys are our shield agents. We're going to need your help.
Come on.
And with that, let's move on to start the show off with our sponsors. This week's sponsors are Edward Norton Antivirus, Beats Headphones, SanDisk, and a blurry can of Pringles.
I'd like to say there was actually surprisingly little product placement.
I don't think anyone wanted to pay money to have to be in this film.
How'd they know?
I mean, Pringles is like, well, tell you what. How about you have us out of focus and we'll give you like a third of the price? And they're like, all right, fucking fine.
And a beverage company definitely wasn't going to sponsor.
No, that's true.
Definitely not. Mountain Dew, perhaps.
So, can I just say that the Incredible Hulk is not that incredible?
Are you getting into it now? Do you want us to...
No, I just want to preface...
The mediocre Hulk. So we're going to jump into... We have a format for this. We've changed it up a little bit from last week based on some great feedback. So we're going to start with our facts like we did last time. To start with, the movie was released on June 13th, 2008. It's about a month and a week after Iron Man was initially released.
Which is nuts.
Yeah, I did not realize they were that close. It had a budget of $150 million, which was about the same as Iron Man's. And
it's also nuts.
Yeah. And it had a box office return of $263 million, which was about half as much as Iron Man's box office return.
No, it's okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it still probably made money.
It definitely made money.
Huh.
It absolutely made money. It just did not make as much as Iron Man.
Interesting.
Which is, interesting, understandable. It was distributed by Universal, similar to Iron Man. And it was directed by Louis Leterrier. So I had no idea who Louis Leterrier was or what else he directed. He directed all the Transporter movies and Clash of the Titans.
Ah,
So
all right.
If that explains a lot.
It partly, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Box office gold.
Yes, good old Louis Leterrier. Which at the same time, when you think about like Jon Favreau directing Iron Man, you're like, he's an actor's director. Because he is an actor. He was an actor before he was a director. But even with a director like him, you wouldn't expect him to do as well as he did, especially compared to Louis Leterrier. So previously we had the Secrets of the Marvel Universe segment, and we've moved that until after our review. So we're going to jump directly into our review, which is aptly titled, "That's My Secret, Captain. I'm always reviewing."
Oof.
That's for you, DKP.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about the movie. Who wants to open us up?
Mind blown. Mind blown.
Mind blown. Tell me about it. Why was your mind blown?
I'm just saying that it wasn't nothing really.
This
happened.
movie was a chore to get through for me, and I did not expect that.
All right.
It was long. I don't know if it was longer than Iron Man, but it certainly fucking felt that way.
It was shorter than Iron Man.
Was
it did not
shorter
feel
than
that way.
Iron Man?
Yeah.
I remember at the climax, I was making ramen noodles, just listening to it happen. Like, I don't know what it was. Like, I really remember enjoying this movie when I saw it in theaters.
Yeah, you had talked about like the Incredible Hulk being one of your favorite characters in the MCU.
Oh no, he is not the
and
MCU.
his movies.
Like the Hulk is my favorite Marvel character. Period. But this movie does not do him justice whatsoever.
So I found that so first off, I literally fell asleep during the final battle between the two Hulks. Yeah. I literally fell asleep. The Abomination and Hulk. I fell asleep, so I went back to play it again, and I literally could not get through it. And so, like, I was watching it, and my thought was, no wonder I fell asleep. How long does this go on? And I fast-forwarded it through it till I got to something interesting happen. So that was my challenge. My challenge with this movie was the Hulk story. Whereas I found the Bruce Banner story to actually be interesting and engaging. So, like, here are the things that I liked about this movie. I loved anger management. The heart monitor, the fact...
Fitbit.
Where he's like...
Exactly. He's going to masters. He's learning all the things. If you were actually Bruce Banner, I feel like those were things you would do that had never occurred to me. So those parts worked for me. But here's what didn't work. What didn't work is the fucking Hulk triad. And the Hulk triad for me was the Hulk, Betty Ross, and General Ross. So General Ross...
Hulk and the Rosses.
The Hulk and the Rosses. General Ross would try to get the Hulk and accidentally would hurt Betty, and Betty would scream, and the Hulk would get angry, and then the General Ross would have to do something more drastic, and then Betty would get caught in the in crossfire. Thank you, Mountains. Caught in the crossfire, and then General Ross would have to do something more violent. And they would do this little triad over and over and over again. And I was like, at first I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. But man, you cannot make the last half of the movie entirely about that bullshit premise. So that's my my take.
So you said there's a lot of things you did like about this movie, and
Yeah.
you named one.
Oh,
Is
okay.
there anything else?
All right, so yeah. So I love the Days Without Incident counter. I thought that was really interesting. I super loved, and this may come up in the eggs, secret part. I loved him walking in the rain to the 1970s Hulk music. That part was deeply satisfying to the kid in me that watched the Hulk when I was growing up.
A couple things like that. Old Lou Ferrigno popping up.
Yeah, we'll talk about all that stuff in our Easter eggs portion of the show.
They used the 1970s equipment. So he was sitting in the same chair that he was sitting in the 1970s.
Was he? I didn't know that.
And the light that came up on his face was exactly the same. So they captured that. That just made me nostalgic. And the other thing I loved about this movie was the city, the
Brazilian city.
The Brazilian city. I don't remember the name of it.
Favelas.
It
Like in Max Payne 3.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Like, literally, that first part of the movie, that first little movie vignette we got, I love that part. Every part of that was great to me. And you know what was not in that vignette? Any Hulk at all. So that was the part that I liked. I liked that it was beautiful. I love the drone shots flying over. It was very pretty. So that is everything on my good list.
Idify, what are your thoughts?
This movie is the Clone Wars of Marvel.
Okay.
What do you mean by
First
that?
part of the movie, you're super excited, you're into it. The middle half, you fall asleep. You wake up when Yoda fucking finally pulls out his lightsaber. That was this movie.
And then even then, it's still like, oh no, why is this happening?
Oh, why is this such bad CGI?
Which
Everything when he gets in, when he comes back to the United States after the incident at the college.
Yeah, okay. That is kind of something to touch on. This movie felt like a Marvel movie until he went back to the United States, and then it felt nothing like it. Like, you know, in Marvel movies, you'll have like that. He's working at the bottling plant, and there's that one overly bombastic, hey, fuck you, man, sort of guy, right? And who gets his comeuppance, the whole bit. They had all that. They touched all the beats that would, like, be there. But then, like, there was a tonal shift to, like, boring completely after that section. And that's not to say that I necessarily enjoyed the first part either. I don't know. Like, I have some notes here that were just... This movie had the worst intro sequence out of any movie I've seen possibly ever. It was so... Go back and watch it if you don't believe me. Well, it's so horrendously... And this is going to be the theme, for me at least, corny. Just awfully cheesy.
I mean, cheesy and corny is kind of a thing for Marvel movies. But I think that this...
Not, like, pleasingly so.
But this particular cheese, the type of cheese that you get with the... Even with something like Iron Man, fits in the realm of, like, a fun cheesiness. Like, something that you know that it's cheesy, but you're enjoying it.
Right.
And the cheese in this didn't fit with the actual tone of the movie.
Well, it's because, like, the movie wanted to play itself super straight.
Yeah.
So, but it failed in doing so, and that's why it was, like, corny in the bad way.
I want to touch on that real quick.
Yeah, sure.
So my biggest overall issue with this movie is that it tonally doesn't fit with the rest of the MCU. This movie takes itself way too seriously. You know, even with something as like devastating as aliens coming into the world, Avengers, which is a much larger stakes in the original Avengers, but those stakes were handled in a cheesy and fun way. And in this, the stakes are not nearly as big, but for some reason everything is so dire and drab and dreary comparatively. And I think that that's kind of, and it's, you can tell that, you know, we talked about how great Iron Man set up the tone for the MCU. You could tell that this movie existed, that they were filming these two movies side by side because they hadn't grabbed that tone yet. They hadn't captured that magical essence of what makes MCU movies so great. As by the time they were, you know, finishing this movie and they saw the success that Iron Man was, and they kind of found their footing with Marvel movies. This was them still trying to figure out what they wanted to do, and it felt a lot more like what we've gotten out of the modern DC movies lately.
I agree 100%, but I think that I'm willing to cut them a little slack for that.
For sure.
So if that had been the only concern, it was that complicated with some of their other more egregious failures. So, oh man, comparing it to the DC universe is like spot on. Like, I feel like this was where they made all of those DC universe mistakes. And what they did is they learned from it. They said, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to do it more like Iron Man.
I mean, they were just like, look what made more money. Look what people liked more.
For sure.
And that was enough already. Plus, like, I mean, even just from the
great analysis, Ben.
Like, yeah, you see what works, and this movie certainly doesn't.
So I completely agree with you 100%, Major Tom. But I'm willing to cut them some slack for it. I'm willing to suspend that disbelief and say, give me another Hulk. So yeah, that's my response to it.
You want another Hulk movie?
I do, actually.
So here's gonna be my hot take. I don't, and I had not said this since I finished the movie today. I don't want another Hulk movie. I think Hulk is far better as a supplementary character, more than a main character. And here's why. So Hulk is like the sort of, I mean, you have like I forget who the other person is. He's like Space Goku. I want to say the Vision, but it's not the Vision. It's something else. But for the most part, like
the Sentry.
The Sentry, yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Like, but apart from Sentry, like Hulk's like one of the strongest characters in the MCU, right? Like, you cannot put him down. He goes nuts. The more you irritate the gamma rays, radiation, like, just the worse it gets. But in order for the stakes to be worth the shit in the movie, they have to create a villain that can rival that.
Yep.
And I don't like seeing that. Like, it sucks when, like, but meanwhile, Hulk in the Avengers, who plays a smaller role, doesn't have that obstacle. You see him ripping through buildings, like, almost like surfing through them with his arms, just going nuts, like, doing all sorts of cool shit. In this one, he hulks out and gets, like, beat up and is just like, and I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. And it's like, I understand they have to have that character that's like, this could potentially beat the Hulk. But it just kind of ruins the Hulk. Like, that's not the point. Like World War Hulk, the whole thing was like, yeah, he's too fucked up for all of us. Like, we need to jettison him out of our planet. So like that's why, it's just like I think that if you have another Hulk standalone, unless you went somewhere completely different with it,
You have to have an army to throw him at for him to be interesting.
yeah.
Well, I think World War Hulk would have been the right thing to do. And we're not going to
Thor
spoil
already
Thor
stole
too
that,
much.
but
We're not going to spoil Thor a whole lot here. But to me, Thor kind of handles the whole World War Hulk thing. It's like a half measure. So, yeah, kind of unfortunate.
So, but this does bring us around to something that I was hoping to talk about, which is Tim Roth.
Yeah, one of my favorite actors, man. I adore
Mine
Tim
too.
Roth.
Tim Roth is wonderful.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are
Normally.
Dead is one of my favorite movies. He's
Four Rooms
great.
is-
4 Rooms, perfect.
Yeah.
He's even good in bad
See
movies.
the Hateful Eight recently?
Hateful
it in that.
Eight, exactly.
Of course.
Here is a movie where he did not do well. And
Yeah, it's... Sorry, I don't mean to
please.
interrupt, but like Tim Roth and Edward Norton are two of the greatest actors of our
know!
time. And it's like,
It's
what do
always
they...
a treat when you see them in a
Yeah,
film.
it's a
and you
treat.
somehow
They
get them
were
to-
so
they don't
mediocre
do,
in this movie.
yeah, they
Well, they
don't
were-
do a ton of films either.
They were
So-
underutilized. Like, this is not the
completely.
right type of dialogue for them to have and the right type of scenes and just, I don't know. You look at it and you go like, oh, okay. Like, I kind of get why Edward Norton is no longer in the MCU. Why they replaced him with...
I don't know if that's his
Ruffalo.
fault, though. But, I am glad that he's not, because I think it'd be more distracting than anything. Like, imagine watching The Avengers and seeing Ed Norton chilling there. I wouldn't be like, oh man, that's Bruce Banner. I'd be like, holy fuck, that's Ed Norton.
I think
Can't
that it
believe
would
I'm
have
watching
worked.
him in another movie.
I think it would have worked, but the problem is the tone of this film, the tone of Bruce Banner in this movie does not fit. And granted, to a certain extent it does, because even Mark Ruffalo's Hulk is kind of damaged and broken and, has a similar vibe about him. But he doesn't do it quite as seriously as Edward Norton does.
So Edward Norton is a really passionate character actor. He becomes the characters. You look at American History X, you look at Fight Club. He is the thing. He becomes those characters. But when he became Bruce Banner, he wasn't somebody I particularly cared about or was interested in.
Like a hippie karate teacher.
Well, yeah, but see, I guess I just wanted to... I wanted him to be more. I wanted him to be a more interesting and dynamic character, but really he was just sort of hung up on getting cured and...
But even then, he had like no real monologues or lines in the movie.
Exactly. He was just kind of like... I don't know. He was just not interesting to me. I didn't feel strongly about it. And here's going to be one of the most lame critiques that I could give something. Because like, how could an actor fix this thing? But here... And this is just the dumbest thing ever. I hate Norton Hulk face. So they clearly based the CGI of Hulk when he transformed on Edward Norton's face. And here's the thing.
I'm sure they did, but I can't notice. Like it.
I've been looking at it. That was not the Hulk for me. That guy, he was this pointy-nosed, weird...
Hashtag not my Hulk. You know what
Not
I'm
my
saying?
Hulk, exactly. And so, like, I could buy his Bruce Banner. He wasn't very interesting, but I could buy it. I was interested in the things that he did. But man, as soon as he turned into Hulk, I was like, who is this stringy-looking... this is not the Hulk.
The string bean motherfucker.
Exactly.
Ethan was popping in and out watching the movie with us. And
That's your almost 3-year-old?
yeah, he's 2. He loves the Hulk, but he doesn't like consume Hulk media.
Right.
We have like some comic book books that he likes to go through the pages of, and he knows the characters. He knows who Abomination is. He knows who Hulk is. So we start watching this movie, and it gets to the first time that Hulk shows up on screen, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, come check it out! Hulk's on screen." So he runs over and he goes, "Ah, scary Hulk," and then runs away.
That's exactly my feeling, too.
Is that a scary Hulk?
Yeah, scary Hulk.
Somehow Lou Ferrigno was sort of endearing as the Hulk, you know? Like I felt for him, you know? And this Hulk, I did not feel for him.
Well, I don't know. That's my problem with this Hulk in general, is that he didn't seem like the rage monster in which he is. And like they kind of went a little bit further away with that in the Avengers, but like I kind of rationalized that as like, okay, the Hulk has been outside, because, you know, it's like two separate entities, kind of, right?
Yeah.
He now, like, realizes, like, oh, I can have fun when I'm out here, some, like, instead of just that. So I understand, like, maybe he can't control it just yet, but, like, there are so many scenes in this where Hulk was simply not smashing at all.
It's true.
And it's like, the whole thing is like, he can't control it, he can't contain it, but like, he was pretty, comparatively to what it should have been, he was pretty fucking docile through most of it.
He was the thoughtful Hulk.
Yeah.
I want to talk about his name, Hulk. It's something you and I talked about for a moment. There's a scene in this movie where there's a reporter who's interviewing two people who were at the scene during the college like destruction thing.
Yep.
And one of the kids is describing it. He's like, yeah, it was this big like monster like Hulk, and he like calls him he describes him as a Hulk. So that's supposed to kind of help this, you know, get to the point of this idea that he's the Hulk or Hulk. And later on in the movie, we cut to Edward Norton. We cut to Hulk fighting, and you know he has the Hulk smash line. So like the process of like how he got
even before then, when Tim Roth sees him, like he sees like an old rival, he goes Hulk, and I was like, that's when I thought I was like, have they established that his name is Hulk yet?
Exactly.
Because I didn't remember anyone else calling him that.
And it I don't know, it's one of my bigger issues with the movie outside of just the tone itself. But there's an inconsistency to this movie that they're trying to and it's a tough challenge to try to overcome, especially back like as you're establishing a universe like this. I don't mean to like give them a pass for it, but I know it's a challenge to try to figure out how this movie should be positioned. What should the story be? You don't want to do an origin story again because we had the Ang Lee Hulk movie just a few years earlier. Everybody's
Man, I wish we could have reviewed that one. I was like, if I thought this one was like, ugh,
That's
I
the
haven't
one
watched that
thing
one
I
since theaters
appreciate
either.
about this movie. That the intro did not go over the origin.
But it went over something though, but that it was just it tried to fill in some sort of backstory, but it was just shot so incredibly corny. Like one of my notes is there was like a thing in the paper, a paper it scans about, it says green Sasquatch. And it's like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be the elusive Bigfoot? That's what you saw? That thing ripping up through a town at some point?
Yeah. Well, they mentioned him being in Canada at one point because he's talking about all the different people he's killed.
At the end of this movie, spoiler alert, he's living back in Canada, right? By himself, like I guess fending off the land or whatever. Like that's probably where he should have been originally.
You know, this is sort of the Hulk's American vacation, and the next movie he's going to do the European vacation.
Christmas vacation for the Hulk, and then Hulk scared stupid.
I would absolutely watch Hulk scared
Boo,
stupid.
a Hulk Halloween.
Although I do want to suggest,
Why does the Hulk only terrorize the South America?
He
Why
does
does the
seem to
Hulk
go to South
travel
America a
to
lot.
Europe?
Maybe it's too far to jump.
Well, it's a traveling issue
Because he knows people. He can't go to France. He get way too annoyed.
Yeah,
like,
it's either up or down.
American,
You got
like,
land.
you motherfucker.
The land masses that are connected are much easier to traverse. You know, as a
yeah, he'd have
criminal.
to go. He'd have to go through Alaska
fugitive.
and then across the bridge.
maybe, yeah, I could see this scenario where he jumps from Alaska to Russia. Jumps over Sarah Palin's house.
He jumped right
she can
over
see
her house.
Russia.
I mean, dude, like he might as fucking well. He kind of already did that. I mean, there was like, okay, he started out in Portugal, and then he gets like all fucked up, and they're like, you're in where, Guatemala, and then like suddenly he just jumps and he's in Mexico. Like, how the fuck did I get here?
15 days.
And then he somehow crosses the border.
So I think he started in Brazil, where they speak Portuguese.
He started in Brazil.
Okay, but sure,
At least at the beginning.
But still,
even then, like
15 days to jump across two
by
continents.
himself,
It's
including
impressive.
crossing a border.
And he didn't become the Hulk because we get that like 17 days without any incidents thing.
It's
when he gets to the
true.
college.
Yeah, he didn't Hulk his way across the border.
Which that'd be a fun movie. I want to watch.
I
want to
see the Hulk in a
movie.
fucking sombrero and the you know that whole bit. I would love to see
Oh
that.
man,
shit.
and you do not want to see
Hulk
Bruce,
in a mariachi band.
Bruce Banner getting a cavity search. Like, okay, bud, you're the one.
He's doing his breathing.
Exactly.
Your diaphragm
I love-
game is on point.
That the Hulk can control the fact he can't die.
Yeah.
What?
I know there was a Hulk where Bruce Banner put a gun to his head and he pulled the trigger, but then he turned so fast back in a Hulk that it didn't hurt him.
No, that was alluded to in, like, I think Avengers 1.
Avengers,
where he's
yeah.
like, I tried to kill myself, and then...
The other guy spit out.
The big guy
other
spit
guy.
it out or whatever.
Dude, they
Yeah.
treat Hulk so fucking goofy in those. But
I-
anyways,
to me,
like
all
it.
that stuff works for me.
we'll get to that, I guess, when
Yeah.
we get
Yeah.
to it. But he's like, the other guy, the big guy, spit out the bullet.
So, previously we had the segments that broke out like the villains, and we had talked about adding a segment that talked about the love interests and all that. But we've decided to roll that into the review. So let's talk about the villain for a little bit.
So
Which one? I mean,
General Ross was the main villain. And I feel like there was that triad I talked about, and I feel like they took that from the comics. So when I read Incredible Hulk when I was a kid, that's what the comics were always about. I love Betty.
Isn't it amazing that Marvel can get such talented actors for these roles?
Yes.
It is. It's very unfortunate that they can't get the right writers, though.
But
At least in the case of Incredible Hulk.
But here's the deal. My problem with Ross is that he's an idiot. And I
yeah, when I stood outside, we were like having a cigarette before we came out here. I was like, that guy's probably the biggest retard in the Marvel universe. Like, that dude is dumb.
he is just really dumb. He's
a badass.
He is bad at hunting Hulks. He's bad at catching Hulks. He's
Like,
bad
there's
at
more than one.
He's bad at making Hulks.
That man is the worst Hulk hunter I've ever seen.
He is just bad at Hulk management in general. And I
sell
that's
Hulk accessories and
and-
fuck that one up. I sell Hulks and Hulk accessories.
he was just bad at being a general in charge of this superhuman program. And not only that, like after he messed it up the first couple of times, they keep giving him the same, go clean this up again.
It assumes like I've got some vendetta, so I have carte blanche to do whatever the fuck I want.
Exactly. And all I kept thinking about, like, as he was doing it, like, all of the military equipment and personnel.
Plus, like,
that
where's
he
S.H.I.E.L.D.
threw-
being like, hey, how about you take a back seat?
Exactly.
We clearly already exist.
Yeah,
Does S.H.I.E.L.D. control the military, though?
I mean, they might operate independently, but, like,
Shield
they
is
have
utilized.
some sort of pull.
Shield is
Yeah.
utilized in this film, but their technology is utilized to find the conversation between Mr. Blue and Mr. Green.
Which, by the way, fucking corny.
The
That was-
names or just the idea of how that worked?
Both. That was one of the things that I wrote down in my notes. How, like, I was rolling my eyes super hard at the beginning, where he's, like, logs into the encrypted server. He's like, oh, Mr. Green, how are you today? But, like, it's this idea in a lot of movies from, like, anywhere from, like, mid-90s to late 2000s did this, to where people are typing in, like, in encrypted channels. They can't type in fucking complete sentences. And that bugs... They fixed that halfway through the movie. When he's in, was it Brazil? He's like, not safe, need more data, we'll talk soon. And it's like, dude, just, come on.
Are you paying by the keystroke here? Or what's going on, man?
It was such, like, an obvious, like, corny thing, and it bugged the hell out of me.
So I actually liked the fact that he would have communications with scientists that he was doing secretly.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
I thought that
That
part
was really
cool.
neat until you found out who it was.
Well, and that's sort of the problem. So, again, amazing actors I loved playing characters I hate. I love the guy who played Mr. Blue.
Yeah.
He was in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? He's been in a bunch of other character acting movies that I loved. This character, actually Mr. Blue, he was
the worst character in the film for me. That dude
super annoying. He was bad at being a scientist. He was the General Ross of scientists. He made all of this stuff that causes people to Hulk out.
It's like, maybe if you'd used more keystrokes, you guys could have chatted a little bit originally and figured out. Because, like, it didn't seem like he was trying to hide the fact that he was trying to synthesize
no,
this.
exactly.
So it's like, that just never got brought up.
Samuel Stern is his name, by the way.
Thank you.
And
Thank
his
you. Samuel
character
Stern.
becomes the leader.
Well, I was going to save that, but
So,
yes, you were correct.
that character, he annoyed me as a scientist. Plus, now all those grad
Like,
students,
as a fellow scientist, you mean?
yes, as a fellow scientist, I cannot accept him into my ranks.
As a scientist, I hated that guy.
And all the grad students they're gonna have to kill so that they don't know all the secrets of the Hulk now. Like, it was crazy to me. It was such a bad character. So, for the same reason that General Ross
He was
a bad
fucking
character.
just annoying.
He
Like
was.
the whole, like, what's your deal with always punching people? Ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. Like, his jokes were all just...
Was that a Seinfeld reference?
They were all flops, like... And then it's like, I can't see possibly what I've done to warrant this. Like, I couldn't stand his character. Like, they tried to make him super eccentric, and like it didn't work.
Yes.
But, and yeah, his motives were stupid.
His
And
motives
he was
were
also
stupid.
the smartest idiot,
And-
allegedly. You know?
Exactly. And like, even if his motives made sense, he was bad at getting done what he wanted to get done. He was just a bad scientist.
Yeah, for sure.
And it especially culminated in the scene in which Tim Roth and him are discussing what they're whether or not they're going to enhance Tim Roth any further, and he says, "I want you to put that monster in me," and
he's like, believe it,
I don't know what you already have in you." It was like the worst porn ever.
He's like the weird euphemisms for all.
So, not necessarily a hot take per se, but I actually enjoyed this movie a little bit more this time than the last time I watched it. Because the last time I watched it, which was last year, leading up to Civil War, it definitely, all the things that you guys were talking about were things that like rang true with me, and I really enjoyed this time knowing everything that was going to happen, just kind of seeing things play out in terms of the way that Bruce Banner's character, like what you guys had mentioned, what he's going through during the beginning arc of the film, of kind of being a recluse, someone who's trying to control their anger, someone who has a good relationship. And I like the conversation that he had with the guy who runs the factory, and he's like, "Hey, I want to put you on the payroll."
Yeah.
So I liked the way that they kind of built his character up in this. I think one of the bigger challenges I have is the inconsistency. And not just the inconsistency with the MCU that we had talked about tonally, but just something as silly as like the actors. I know that that's something that you can't really help a whole lot when things like contracts get in the way, or different situations like that. But specifically the idea that this was Edward Norton that then becomes Mark Ruffalo. When I was watching this, I was trying to picture Mark Ruffalo in the role, and it just kind of didn't click as well for me. So, yeah. But I got to say, I enjoyed it more this time than I did the previous time.
So I can't fault Ed Norton. This is my feeling that I got on the same thought process, is I can't fault Ed Norton. I don't think he did anything wrong as an actor. I think that the problem here was the story not being in the writing and the dialogue. All of those issues were really too much for him to overcome.
So on the topic of villains, what was Tim Roth's? Once again, I feel like this is going to be a running theme for a lot of Marvel movies, but what exactly was his motivation? Because I kept thinking, like, all right, he became Abomination, and now he's like completely transformed into his
motivation
guy.
is explained in the scene where he and Ross are like walking through that hangar or whatever it was.
Yeah, but then he tries to kill General Ross, so it's like you're no longer gonna be part of the military, and you can't just hang out as the weird Hulk fucked up thing on the beach.
But
after this,
for him, it was about power. He had talked about like, I wish I had the body 10 years ago based on like the skills.
I wish I had the body 10 years ago of the Hulk, where I can't live a normal life. I don't know. If he went insane,
but his arc,
maybe he did.
His arc went from power to vengeance, about being the best and beating the best.
Okay,
it was this idea of like, I think he said like at one particular point he said, "I'm ready for round 3." Like after all of his bones were broken, and he had healed up, he's like, "Okay, I'm ready for round 3." Like for him, this was
just so corny,
this was about at the beginning, getting the super soldier serum, which we're going to talk about in the Secrets of the Universe portion, getting the super soldier serum and actually seeing the benefits of those things. And then after he lost again with the super soldier serum, it became about him being able to take down Hulk. It was a personal vendetta that he had. And like everyone else be damned, he was going to accomplish it. And for me, that kind of worked.
So for me, the initial Tim Roth character was interesting. He was an aging soldier, and that's a place you don't want to be. And so he was attempting to continue to be relevant as a soldier, even though his body was going to begin to fail him, right? And so that would have been interesting, but they didn't pursue that. Almost instantly, as you're saying, his intentions changed from that to simply, I want to beat up the Hulk.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I lost interest, right? So, like, even at the end, if you had sort of shown me the crumpled up body of Tim Roth and say, you know, as sort of a morality tale, lo, if you try to live forever, this is what'll happen to you, it wouldn't work because they had gotten so far away from any of the choices that I as a person can make, right? So, like, do I need to get cosmetic surgery? No, because, you know, the life goes on and, you know, trying to fight aging is never succeeds. So I felt like they went in one direction and then they just turned it into, I hate the Hulk and I have to beat him up. And I just didn't care about it. I hate the Hulk and
that man's ass.
Yeah,
even if it kills me.
You know, if they were going to go with that, so like seriously, if I were going to fix this, I would take out the entire first half of his arc, and instead I would have just made him a hillbilly. I hate that Hulk. He stomped on my pig, and I'm going to kick his ass. Give me that super soldier serum.
That Hulk destroyed my moon still.
That's exactly it.
Idify, what were your thoughts on Abomination? And I don't have the note here, but whatever his actual name was. Big Z or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know what it was.
It was like, yeah, it
I
was
like the
Blonsky.
Abomination. Blonsky, correct. I like the Abomination, the animation for the character's build. I liked his style over his comic style, but then I didn't really like Tim Roth's performance. I just didn't care for that aging soldier. It's like, you expect us to feel sorry for you? That's what happens to everybody. And he's like, nope, I gotta take it one step further. I gotta prove to everybody I can whip the Hulk's ass. Fuck that dude. Who cares?
But prove to nobody because it's supposed to be a covert operation.
Yeah, exactly.
He's only proving to himself nothing.
So, I've been
I
trying
would
to
just
find a
rather
little bit of
have
time.
the Abomination as just a guy in the street who's has villainous intentions and just gets this power. I would rather have that Abomination than Tim Roth.
So you wanted him to be like the green, what is it, Hobgoblin or Green Goblin? To where it's like just some dude who happens to make something that can rival the protagonist?
I disagree, and it may be my love for Superman, but as like Lex Luthor is one of my favorite villains because he is someone who like sees Superman as a challenge on top of many other things. But that's kind of what I feel with Blonsky's character.
I don't disagree with that. I don't know what you could have done to make that character interesting, but
to me he is one of the more interesting villains.
What,
Blonsky,
currently?
yeah, Abomination and Blonsky. I think is one of the more interesting. I think he's more interesting than Obadiah Stane for sure.
Oh, I'll give you that. Although I think that Obadiah Stane's CGI was better.
Obadiah also had way better scenes, period.
For sure.
We talked about how menacing he was, his motivations were dumb, but like he had a lot better like screen time.
See,
Tim Roth kind of didn't.
I don't know. We talked about last week how there was this transition of him as someone that you're like, yeah, I think he's the bad guy. I'm starting to piece together that he's the one who's doing all the bad stuff. To him being an insane and maniacal, just like destroy everyone, kill everything, have no plan for how I'm going to get out of this.
Okay,
but
now that you've explained it, it does make more sense for Tim Roth's character to do that than Obadiah Stane. I still don't think that either one was necessarily interesting, but I definitely don't think Tim Roth was. One thing that I thought was strange, that these movies came out, these movies are definitely being filmed at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
They came out a month and a half apart.
And basically the exact same thing, where it's like, at the end, dude has to fight an exact version, but a little bit meaner, of himself.
Yeah.
Using the same shit.
But I think that they were working off of what comic books were in the 60s and 70s, right? They were trying, that was the comic book equation. You fight your rival that is the you that made the wrong decision. And
I've always enjoyed that in video games too, where, let's say God of War, you fight all these ginormous monsters and then you get to the end and the final boss fight is someone who is like of equal size, equal measure, equal like skill set as you, and it's like fighting a version of yourself. So I've always kind of appreciated that.
Yeah, it works for me too.
All right. Within the review section, I want to talk about the love interest. We're going to call this our Pepper Potts moment. What did you guys think of Betty Ross and Liv Tyler playing her, her motivations, how she worked as a character, things like that?
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. You were going to say something.
You go.
I was genuinely disappointed.
That it was Liv Tyler?
Well, in the performance,
Liv Tyler is a
in the
bum.
character.
I'm sorry. She is not good.
I keep wanting her to be awesome, but genuinely... All right, so here was my very favorite thing about that entire character, is that her name was Elizabeth, and I know somebody named Elizabeth.
I did too.
So that was literally the best thing I can say about her. That's all I got.
Most of her lines in this movie were, Bruce, and that was kind of it. Like, she didn't really have, like, any real purpose in the film whatsoever. Now, we know that Pepper Potts is god tier material, so, like, this is where we're going to compare it. Like, she had a lot of stake in that movie with the actual character. So apart from, like, one scene where they're, like, trying to fuck, and she's like, oh, it's, we can't do this, and then the scene where she gets, like, upset in New York, like, no character, like a wet blanket of a love interest, of a Pepper Potts.
I did love the scene with her in the taxi. I have to give her that.
Yeah, there were a couple of moments of humor injected in this movie, and that was one of the ones.
And I thought Liv Tyler did a good job of it.
Where it's like, don't get him angry or whatever, and then it shows him in a cab. Or he's talking about the subway. He's like, wait, you want to put me underground in a tunnel in the, like, most angsty city in the world or something like that? And then she's like, no, you're right, let's take a cab. And then it cuts to the cab driver acting crazy, driving insane, and then she freaks out on him at the end.
So but I have to give her the same pass I gave Ed Norton. I think given the material that she had, I don't think she could have done a better job. She had, like, micro scenes. She had almost no acting. The biggest acting she got to do was against a CGI Hulk on a fucking mountain face. So, like, I think that she didn't have a lot to work with going in. So I like Liv Tyler, and I want her to do well. She did not do it in this movie.
I could not disagree more. I agree with everything.
I thought she did great in Incredible.
I think that in every movie I've seen Liv Tyler in, she has that same, like, delivers her lines with no feeling. Like, example, like a recent movie she was in, was it The Strangers or whatever, where she's like,
I mean, that was about a decade ago.
Oh no, I'm so scared. Like, that's like her delivery of, like, everything in every movie I've seen her in. And she did not disappoint in this movie. Well, I mean, she did, but, like, not disappoint my expectations. You see?
Yeah.
I mean, when you do comparisons to Pepper Potts, there's no comparison.
Pepper Potts is a great love interest.
Pepper Potts is awesome, but
this
Betty Ross,
Betty,
just did not work for me at all.
For sure. Anything else that we want to touch on before we give our final scores?
I got a couple things.
Betty Ross.
That's awesome.
I love her.
Please tell me why.
She definitely wasn't, like, your typical average female in one of these movies. Like, she left her fucking man to go be with her ex.
That's shitty.
Balls.
That's really shitty. Imagine being her man.
That's how much she loved Bruce Banner.
They tried to be like, no, that dude sucked anyways.
Because
he ratted out The Fugitive. Like, I mean, can't blame that guy, and he got shit on.
Yeah.
No, but then he even understood. Your dad's a fucking asshole. You know what? You are an asshole.
But he understood a little bit too late.
You know, when my wife
he still is not dating anyone now. He's fucked.
You know, when my wife hangs out with the serial killing ex-boyfriend of hers, I'm cool with it.
You're like, we're very understanding. As long as she tells me she's gonna do it, it's okay. Okay, I want to talk about a couple things that I wrote down. We were talking about how corny this movie was. In the very beginning scene before he goes to America, I just have a couple notes that I want to talk about. So we're to assume that he learned Portuguese by watching Portuguese Sesame Street. That was kind of interesting to me. Also, there was a lot of, like, very cliched things that happened during that time. Are you guys familiar with the Wild West Kiss and Run?
No.
So, Happens in quite a few movies that take place in the wild, wild west, if you will.
The Wild
Including
West.
the one with Will Smith.
This West is wild.
Yes. Where it's like something's happened, the guy's being chased or running, and then he busts through the ceiling and there's like some nude woman going,
Oh, yeah.
"Ooh," and then he gives her a big like, and then like runs out and she always goes, "Ah," like she liked it, and then looked out the window like, where's he going? They did that in this movie, but he's getting chased by the military. He breaks it, busts into some Portuguese lady's apartment, and then before bailing out, this random white guy just like might have been her upstairs neighbor, who knows?
All right, so
He gives her a kiss and runs out, and she does that bit where she looks out after him like longingly.
I can actually defend that moment. God, do I not want to, but I can a little bit. That's
Please.
the girl he saved from the asshole at the beginning.
The one
of
that's like,
movie.
hey, let's go get some lunch.
Okay, still super fucking corny.
Agreed.
That's
100%. It was corny, but
That's
he
deep,
wasn't
yo.
a stranger.
Another thing, this is like kind of the last bit that I have on here. The last note I'll bring up at the very end, because it's not as relevant to the movie. But, what was it again? Oh, yeah. So, the whole bit with, like, man, his blood, it transfers everything, like... Well, by the way, I'd like to first give a shout out to Peb's mom for listening. Hello, nice to meet you. But,
Hey,
where
Mom.
does he come? Like, what does he do with all that stuff?
What?
Like, he had such a big issue with like a drop of blood getting somewhere, like his bodily fluids infecting other people. That dude that dude has to be dropping bodily fluids all over.
No,
the
he's
place.
not dropping loads. There was the
No?
conversation that he had with Betty Ross about how he can't get too excited.
So what if he has a nocturnal emission?
He wakes up as the Hulk.
And that clearly hasn't happened in hundreds of days by the time we start this movie. Maybe his
smash.
It's why Hulk likes the Valkyrie so much. She's invulnerable.
I was just
That's
thinking,
the
just
Hulk
like
of wanting to
no,
commit suicide all the time.
But I'm not buying it either though. He's supposed to be keeping his cool, and the monk guy can teach him to get hit in the face and not turn into the Hulk, but he can't teach him like, hey man, look, I get it. You're gonna have to drop a load every now and again.
So
Otherwise you'll be on edge big time.
So here's the problem for me, this is the driving while getting head problem. You don't ever want to drive while getting head because there's this moment right when you come where you kind of just lose control. And
We've gone off the rails, everyone.
Jesus, take the
We've
wheel.
gone off the rails.
we have gone off the rails. I'm sorry. We
Well,
can get back to
no,
it.
this
Power
leads
of
into
Christ compels you.
this leads into one thing we all wanted to touch on, which is consistency.
In Avengers, he definitely blows loads.
Dude, he's
that what we're
dropping
going
loads
Oh,
like a
it's
goddamn
jacking it
dump
all the
truck in
time.
Avengers. Come on. But do we want to talk about consistency? You want to go before we give a score? Because like that plays a lot into it, I think.
Been wanting to
the
say this
loads
for a while.
start.
Because of Hulk's body type, do you think he has a micro penis?
Oh my goodness.
I actually thought I was trying to figure out a way to put that in there, and I was gonna say as another note, I had to definitely could not have cast, Terrence Howard in this role. He's one who doesn't get angry. Come on, man. Come on. But no, I can't say for sure though. There were some cool nods to the pants though. That's been like the running joke forever.
We're going to touch on that here in a moment
okay.
as well.
But do we have anything else on consistency?
No.
Not
No?
good. Well, I think we've covered the parts that I had challenges with. I felt like the movie was inconsistent and it didn't.
Well, just with the Hulk's powers, like he would be ultra however the fuck they needed him to be, and then he would be like able to get the shit kicked out of him big time, often, and also like, is it just the pulse Fitbit thing that if it hits 200? Like I thought it was I didn't know if it was hard to his heart rate. I thought it was like literally an angry thing.
I think the heart rate is an indicator of how angry or upset he is. It's not
Remember,
that...
they couldn't have sex because I doubt he was angry during that part because he started to like get worked up. I suppose,
But your adrenals
That's the
will start pumping.
That's his secret, Captain. He's always worked up.
Ah, yeah.
He's always jacking it.
And there's only one other thing I want to talk about, and it's the big showdown between the military and the Hulk. How bland and boring that scene was. It's like they rented out just a blank field.
I actually thought it was cool.
Yeah?
Where he like has the two shields and he's holding them against the like sound wave parts and he cuts one of them in half.
So there's that consistency thing I'm talking about, where it's like it doesn't make sense to me why the Hulk, like they showed. I kept thinking I was watching like Green Superman. They always show like the bullets going beep 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 off Superman. That's the bit. They did that a ton in this movie.
They did.
So it establishes, like, the Hulk's skin and bones are stronger than any, like, bullets cannot pierce them. So he's gonna take, like, police cars, which are like a 50 caliber weapon or whatever, right? Shred through that. And he's gonna be like, I've got to do some real damage as Hulk. I put tinfoil on my hands. It doesn't make any sense. But then again, maybe the Hulk's not exactly smart either. But
it looked cool.
Sure. I mean, maybe I'm being too.
It didn't work
too
for me.
critical
The
of
first
it, but-
one worked for me because he used it as a way to block the sound waves, and it showed that he had started to think a little, and he was smarter. So that first one I was okay with. The second one, it just seemed like, well, now Hulk knows to split things in half and put two things on his fists, so that's what he's doing. So like the second one didn't work for me as well. But that whole second fight just didn't work at all.
I mean, just like it felt like there was nothing going on. Like it was almost like they literally could have just shot an empty field and CGI'd a school in, and that was it. Like it just felt way too empty for me, you know. Like, and that might have been like a budgetary thing where it's like, well, we can't write permits, we can't do all this to get like a downtown scene because we have to save it for the end later too.
Yeah.
But I felt that though, you know what I mean? But
It worked for me. The idea of it being in a big field on a college campus, like what are those? It's not a park. What's it called? The
Intramural
pavilion.
Fields.
Whatever.
Oh yeah.
The big area at a
Where
college.
you
Like
normally
colleges
see
have
sightings of
those
green
big sections of
Sasquatches.
grass.
The quad.
The quad, yes, that works. So, Idify, do you have anything else that you want to add in terms of the review before we get to our scoring?
No, I am good, sir. Go ahead.
All right. Let's go in the same order we went last time.
Mr. Idify, how do you score The Incredible Hulk?
I give this one a 10. I'm fucking around. This is definitely like 6. It's just, it felt like an Incredible Hulk cartoon episode.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with that. It does. My score is 6.7.
Wow.
There were things I liked. It is on the cusp. To me, a 7 is a good movie, and this is on the cusp of being a good movie. Just doesn't quite get there.
Pev, what are you gonna score it?
Well, all right, so this sort of pisses me off. I'm glad that we actually switched order this time. Okay. And because I was going to give it a 6.9. Because it's almost passing. If they did just a little more, I would have given it a passing grade. So I'm giving it a 6.9.
Go for it.
All right, I guess I'm next. There were too many questions that were left unanswered, if you know what I'm saying. But I'm going to give this a 5.724.
5.7.
No.
No, it's a 100-point scale. It's a 100-point scale.
Yeah, like it was a slightly above average. Which I swear to God that was not intentional. But like it's not passing. It's not like I'd watch it again. Like, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. So that's 5.7.
All right.
It was getting there, but it never quite made it.
I have a feeling that this is going to be the only movie where our reviews are semi in the ballpark.
You mean like
similar?
Consistent? Like similar? Yeah.
Agreed.
Probably.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I don't know, man.
Surprisingly close.
Thor is an interesting movie.
No, well, yeah. I mean, that one they
Once
might
you
be
get
real
to
close
Thor
on.
and Thor: The Dark World, Iron Man 3. I don't know. I feel like Idify is probably going to score Iron Man 3 a little higher than us. Giving the first one a 10 gives me some indication.
Definitely.
All right, with that, we're going to move on to our secrets of the Marvel Universe.
Universe.
All right, first up. The opening flashback sequence is a remake of the sequence in the 1978 Incredible Hulk television series, as noted by Pev earlier. This sequence also displays the names Nick Fury, Rick Jones, and it has blueprints for Tony Stark.
Who, Rick Jones? Well, who is Rick Jones? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I know he's popular in the Marvel world. Okay. Someone out there who knows Marvel better than us is like, you guys don't know who Rick Jones is?
You say that's your Hulk's
Well,
your
tell
favorite,
us.
but you don't
Tell
know
us who
Rick
he
Jones
is.
Next up, Bruce Banner is watching a TV show. So in the part where he's like flipping through and he's watching Sesame Street, he watches this TV show called The Courtship of Eddie's Father, and that starred Bill Bixby, who went on to play Bruce Banner in the 1970s TV show. Did that make sense?
It did.
It did.
There's a portrait of Steve Rogers when Ross is talking to Blonsky about the Super Soldier program. Now, I didn't make this picture out. This is just something that I saw on an Easter egg breakdown.
Go back and look now.
Yeah, but I was
Chris
looking
Evans,
for
I'm
it, and I didn't notice it. Obviously, it wasn't Chris Evans because I don't think Chris Evans had been cast in the part. Paul Soles plays Stanley, who is the owner of the Stanley's Pizza Place where he gets to stay when he's there.
I
And Paul
actually like
Soles
that
does the
guy.
voice of the Hulk in the 1960s cartoon. He also does the voice of Peter Parker and a bunch of other comic book characters from back then. Martin Starr is in this movie for a brief moment, but he's in 2 MCU films. And this one, he's an intern in the science department. It's where he breaks in after he becomes that pizza delivery man, and Martin Starr's
my God,
holding
that
up the
scene.
pizza, and he's waving it at him. The theory is that that's the same person who's in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh,
in Spider-Man Homecoming, he plays a professor. He plays a science teacher.
He grew up.
You're kidding,
Yeah.
really?
The theory is that it's the same person, but
very sweet.
just a theory. Next up, Pep mentioned this one. The Lonely Man plays about 30 minutes into the movie whenever it shows Bruce Banner in the rain. So anytime that he travels in the TV series, that's the song that plays, The Lonely Man. Next up, Lou Ferrigno appeared as a security guard. He also voices the Hulk in this movie, and he voices him in Avengers.
Does he really?
And pretty much any appearance of Hulk. I couldn't get confirmation if he voiced him in Thor Ragnarok. That was the only one I couldn't get confirmation, but he's the voice of Hulk in every other.
That was probably the best part of this movie. Legitimately, the voice for the Hulk, and when even the Hulk smash, that worked for me. That sounded like the Hulk.
Yep.
So I can at least say that. Good job.
And I
Lou
even liked
Ferrigno.
seeing Lou Ferrigno. I mean, that
Yeah,
little
that's
scene was
cool.
very endearing
Still,
to me.
this is 10 years old, but
Yeah, he
he's
gets
in good
that
shape, man.
He's like, "Hey, I'll give you this pizza. I got a medium pizza here," and he says "God bless you, kid," or something like that. Thought that was neat. Next up, the serum that's used on Blonsky is the same color as the super soldier serum in Captain America: The First Avenger. So it's implied that it's the same one. So wherever Dr. Ross gets the serum out of, there's a nameplate on it. And that plate says that it was developed by Dr. Reinstein. However, in Captain America: The First Avenger, the guy who develops this name is Dr. Erskine. So I don't know if that was just
That's a typo.
Well, I don't know if it was a typo, if it was a consistency issue, if they imply that that they were 2 different people or anything like that.
Probably
but I thought that was
consistency, if I had to guess.
Next up, Bruce Banner uses a computer. At one point he used a computer, the SHIELD logo appears for one of the first times in Marvel Studios films outside of the end credits for Iron Man. And one of the articles that comes up mentions animal webbing appearing on humans. It's believed to be a Spider-Man reference, but if it is a Spider-Man reference, that's definitely breaking canon because by this point, Peter
Spider-Man
Parker
didn't
was not
exist.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I just looked it up. Lou Ferrigno did voice this Hulk. Oh,
Nice.
the
Okay,
one in
cool.
Thor Ragnarok.
Ragnarok. Cool. That's good, man. I like the idea of keeping that guy on the payroll.
Me too.
Gotta have something to do.
So it's a thing that we're going to talk about next week when we get to Iron Man 2. But there's a news segment that takes place at Culver University with a reporter, and we'll see that scene again. So make sure you guys remember what that scene looks like of the reporter talking about the events at Culver University when she's talking to those 2
Man,
kids.
after watching this, I'm legit excited to watch Iron Man 2.
Me too.
Yeah.
We'll see.
The 2 students who filmed the Culver University fight, they're named in that interview as Jack McGee
Oh my God, really?
and Jim Wilson.
Oh, that's awesome.
So Jim Wilson was a reporter that hunted the Hulk down in the TV series.
And Jack McGee goes after Daredevil, right?
Maybe. I'm not 100% sure.
Which,
on
by
that.
the way,
But
we're not going to be watching, right?
Do what?
Daredevil is not going to show up on our list?
It's not
No.
MCU.
Fuck.
Well, the Daredevil TV series is MCU, but we're not going to watch
the
any
Ben
of the TV
Affleck one?
series.
No.
The Daredevil movie is
Damn,
definitely
that'd have been a
not.
good discussion.
That
though.
is a good discussion one.
And Jim Wilson, he was an orphan that befriended Hulk in the comics. And it's funny, I saw the picture of the comparison of the guy who played him in the movie and what the character looked like in the comics, and they look identical. It's very strange.
Special about him. I'd be friends with the Hulk. Fuck.
Next up, Purple Pants,
Yep.
as referenced earlier.
Absolutely.
I thought that was a pretty good joke where he's like, nah, I'm not wearing these. Even though it would have been really cool.
Más
if he would've worn them.
stretchier?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's one part where this is kind of a rumor speculation. Hulk is like yelling in a storm, and an object seems to appear from lightning-filled clouds, and it falls to the ground. Some people believe that to be Thor's hammer, because that's about the time that Thor's hammer
would be landing.
Yeah, in terms of the MCU. Some people think it's just a rock that like Hulk hits whenever he's freaking out. Next up, as Hulk is fighting Abomination, a figure is seen swinging over Abomination's right shoulder. This is presumed to be Spider-Man, and his cameo is believed to be obscured because Marvel didn't have the rights to Spider-Man.
Oh, come on.
But again, it's one of those that's like, if that was something that they did, it's definitely doesn't work today because, as I stated earlier, Spider-Man just
fans really wanting a Spider-Man.
Yeah,
that's reaching big time.
Yeah.
That's like Silent Hill Wikipedia reference, like levels of like, come on. That's not what it means.
Two more. One of them as the part where Samuel Stern, like after Abomination fucks him over, there's a part where he has a cut on his forehead and some of the liquid falls in and his head starts like growing and getting this weird shape to it. Samuel Stern in the comic books, as Idafy mentioned earlier, is a character known as the Leader. So pretty neat little reference there. And then there was also an alternate ending for the film, I believe it was, where Hulk does something like out in the snow and it causes an avalanche, and then you could see, this is alternate, this isn't in the theatrical version of the film, or even it's like a deleted thing kind of thing where it shows like Captain America's outline with his shield like frozen under the ice.
That'd have been too much.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
You have to like this movie goes so far out of its way to try to set up, I think, too much.
Yeah.
And that would have like pushed it far over the edge.
Did you guys want to touch on or talk about any of these scenes before we move on to our next segment?
I think I'm good.
Our next segment.
Oh,
sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah,
Next segment, I'm good.
All right. Our next segment is called Our Friend Stanley, and it's about the always important Stan Lee cameos. So
I really liked this one.
This might be my favorite Stan Lee cameo.
it's good. He gets a little bit more screen time than he did in Iron Man. You know, he's got his
he's got a line.
He's got his Brazilian beverages that he's opening up and he's excited to drink, and then he takes a swig,
whatever it is. Yeah,
and then
and
then he drops it.
I like imagining what comes next too, like Stan Lee going hulking out and destroying a.
Well, he was probably murdered by the military.
Well, eventually, but I just like the idea that that's a story that I like to tell myself.
Idea too.
They didn't have to shoot it.
Yeah.
So I thought he did a great job.
It has that trope of like people that open a Coke out of the fridge and keep the door wide fucking open while they drink the first sip before they close it. I noticed that, but I was like, I bet Stan Lee would be one of those fucking people though. That's how they used to do it back in the old days, I read.
What'd you think of Stan Lee's cameo in this one?
Interesting character, and I want to see a movie of all these Marvel movies. It's Stan Lee.
You want a standalone movie
if
with
he is
with that
one
guy?
connecting character, if he's supposed to be the Watcher, I would love to watch just a day in the life of him following the Marvel characters.
That's that's what Guardians of the Galaxy 2 implies, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit whenever we get to the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 episode.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a while from now.
Yeah,
yeah, we're a few months away from that.
But we'll get to it.
We will
If
absolutely.
you think about it, the Hulk poisoned a Watcher.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this, like I said, the reason why I like the Stan Lee cameo is like he didn't feel shoehorned in where he's like, "Go get him, kid." There's some goofy shit like that. It was just a funny ass bit where it's
Tony
like,
Stank.
the joke kind of worked regardless. Where it's like, oh, some poor old fella drank this soda and like, whoops.
And you know he loves those too. Those aren't the kind of thing that you can just get at a gas station. Like you have to go to a nice store to be able to get a Brazilian soda.
Yeah.
So
those
are like his favorite soda.
Like, out of all the things this movie did right, apart from Lou Ferrigno voice, that was probably the best part. That's kind of shitty, but I legit, when I was watching, was like, this might be the best Stan Lee cameo. I forgot about this one.
It was good.
Yeah.
And then finally, we're going to move on to our final segment, our post-credits, get out your fucking checkbook moment.
Oh. I thought
this was...
We'll have to sync
How
up
that's
on
supposed to work, I don't mind with screwing up.
Oh, wait,
I thought it was you say
I'm supposed to say post-credits.
Say, get out your fucking checkbook.
But you are supposed to say it like after I say it. So I'm going to be like post-credits, get out your fucking checkbook moment. And you like as I'm finishing saying checkbook moment, you're yelling, get out your fucking checkbook. Kind of like the guy from Trailer Park Boys who's always like yelling.
So I need to yell off mic like over there?
Basically.
Okay.
Okay, let's try that again.
No, fuck
and then
you.
finally we're moving on. Finally we're moving on to our last segment, our post-credits, get out your fucking
Get out
checkbook.
your fucking checkbook!
No, fuck you.
Perfect.
That was perfect. All right. So, although
Shut up, Ricky!
it contained details of what a post-credit scene is, this was not a post-credit scene. This was right before the credit scene. This movie did not have a normal post-credit scene.
Oh, by the way,
Swear to God.
maybe this movie's better to readjust my score, but like, I keep saying this, the best part of this movie, and I keep being noticed, was the fact that I didn't have to sit through the fucking credits to watch this. So, like, once again, best part of this movie was that the post-credit scene was not post-credits.
All right, so I
You
gotta
should
say,
bump
this
your
was
review up to a 6.
this
Go to
was
5.727. Still rounds down, though.
this was my least favorite post-credit scene. My feeling was that some
Let me set it up real quick.
Oh, okay.
So, Tony Stark just walks into a bar, and he tells General Ross that they're putting a team together.
But you missed the most important part.
Which
It
is?
doesn't happen after the credits.
Yes, it doesn't.
It feels
That's the
like
best part.
some intern walked into, what was the name of the guy? Soames, whatever he is. Walked into the director's...
Boss, the people over at the Iron Man film have a post-credit scene.
We
He's
gotta
like,
have
"Oh,
a
shit."
post-credit scene, and then they were like, "All right, well, what's in it?" And he says, "Well, it's just got to be cutesy, and you have somebody show up. You'll be fine. Just write something.
Let's get Robert Downey down here.
Just get Robert Downey
So
down here."
what I love is that it supposes that the general fucking dude...
had any control over the Hulk.
Well, no, not that specifically. Well, yeah, we'll get to that, but when he goes to a bar, he's such a military-type man that instead of being like, "Hey, Chief, let me get a refill," he goes, "Reload." Reload. And he says it a couple times, like the bartender's gotta be like, "Oh, I fucking hate this guy." He comes in like we get it, you're in the fucking military, you're still wearing your dress fucking greens or blues or whatever, like, "Hey, reload me. Hey, put one in the bogey coming through. Give me a Charlie." Like, could you stop, sir? Like, that felt, I loved that. That made that guy so much better, and I was bummed that he doesn't appear anymore. Until
All right,
He does.
he
the
does.
latest one.
Yeah, but here's the deal. It didn't make any sense. First off, why would Tony Stark be trying to get people to join the Avengers?
Yeah.
He was one of the people.
Why
who
is it
recruited,
him and not Nick
and
Fury?
not Samuel L. Jackson?
Yeah.
Number two, why would you go to Ross in as if you were putting together a team would make any sense at all? You go to Ross and say, "I'm trying to hunt down the Hulk."
Yeah.
Because
Hey,
help
you
me
did
find
such a
Hulk?
great job before.
you did such a
I
good
need your
job.
help.
I need your help. Like, nothing about this scene
Or him to
made
go
any
to him.
sense.
What would be cool is him go to him and be like, "Dude, what happened in Harlem? I'm sorry I wasn't there. I was doing something else."
It would have made more sense had he
that would've
approached
worked.
Liv Tyler and been like, "Hey,
Yeah!
you probably have communication with him. We need to talk."
Yeah.
I need to talk to Mr. Green or something like that.
Because that dude being in the bar, drinking his very Hulk Green-esque beverage, by the way, nod, implies like he's washed up, like he fucked up and he's drowning his sorrows. Because he failed, which he fucking did.
Which is why going to see him makes zero sense. Anyways, I was really
also, like,
angry about that.
Why
but
the
here's
fuck would
deal.
Tony Stark have knowledge about the Super Soldier program anyways?
Why would Tony Stark?
Remember, he
I think
goes
Tony
like,
Stark is super connected to everything that's going on.
Yeah, his dad developed the gamma radiation
And
part of
the
it.
majority of the weapons that are used in this movie say Stark Industries on them.
right, but like he knew about the top secret fucking like what the Captain America project from like the
I
50s?
think that's information that
Or
he
no, I'm sorry,
potentially could have gotten from
40s?
Nick Fury. But
Maybe.
I agree with you that having him there was the wrong choice.
Was the
It
wrong
should,
choice.
yeah, if
Absolutely.
you just put Nick Fury there,
Yeah.
none of this shit would have. Well,
Yeah.
it still would have been
No,
why
there
the fuck's
still
he
would have
coming
been
to this
issues.
guy?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I put together a team, and General Thunderbolt Ross, I want you there on that team. I want
your track record is impeccable.
I've been winning too much. I need someone to come help fuck stuff up for me.
Yeah.
Anything else before we close this bad boy out?
No, that pretty much covered it.
All right. Well,
know
thank
what?
you guys
Hold
for
on.
joining us.
No, I gotta
No,
talk
please,
about
go ahead.
Thunderbolt Ross. Thunderbolt
Please.
Ross, that last scene, it was like a
Reload.
whatever moment. I liked seeing Downey back, but I have an imagination, and I have a scene that I would have liked to see Downey in better. I would like it, certain events in the movie change, but you end up finding out that fucking Tony Stark is the one actually riding Banner. That would have been the fucking end reveal. That would have been awesome.
That would have been way fucking cool.
He was Mr. Blue or whatever.
Oh, that would have been cool.
They would have had to change his name to Mr. Red or something.
Mr. Red and Gold.
Yeah.
I mean, this movie's just so fucking corny, though. Like, we can't type in complete sentences, but I'm Mr. Green, though. No one will ever figure that shit out. Come on.
But here's what I will say for it, is that it was new in the idea of universe building, and that they were really trying hard. And they learned a great deal from this that they didn't repeat. And I want to give them credit for that. They learned how not to make this movie.
Yeah. Well, they learned just not to repeat any of this shit at all ever again. I mean, we never got it in their whole movie.
Kevin Feige,
didn't have Ed Norton.
Kevin Feige's great. He's doing great.
So wait, what comes next? Oh, I'm sorry. Where were we?
Anything else that anybody else wants to say before we start closing this bad boy out?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I got one thing, which is like this kind of talks about what we're doing here in its entirety, but yeah, like if you talk about like how this movie was for when it came out, it's fucking not bad.
Yeah.
But the point of what we're doing now is to kind of come back, as far as I understand it. This is what's really weird about it too, is most of these I'm coming back to since they came out, just to be objective about like reviewing and critiquing them
as much as possible.
And
how it ties to the overarching universe.
Yeah, it's just really strange to see what was good and what wasn't. That like back when you were starved for comic book movies because you didn't have them, what no longer works.
For sure.
So it's really interesting to see in this one.
Absolutely.
Do you think Universal considers this movie a win for them?
Yes. I think the facts that I touched on at the very beginning about the idea that the movie cost $150 million and they made $250 million in the box office, like when it comes down to what does Universal think, what they think is did this movie make us money?
And it did.
Do I think that they think it's a success in terms of like helping to establish a universe? If they do, I feel very bad for them.
Right.
And thank God that Disney bought Marvel at this point, if that's their case.
I'm so curious to that Marvel contract. I really am. It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, unless we don't want to say too much and get blackbagged by Disney them fucking selves, we'll have to remain curious.
So next week we'll be back with our Iron Man 2 review. So
Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, you guys got a few days to watch some Iron Man 2. Get yourself ready for some whiplash. Hopefully this episode had a little bit of a better flow for you guys. I feel like it did for me personally. Yep. So
absolutely.
I just hope you didn't think it sucked.
I'm right there with you on that too, yeah.
Also, if we could avoid doing one thing.
Folding paper.
No. Have you guys seen the Nerd Crew Red Letter Media making fun of like comic book podcasts and stuff? It's really funny, I've noticed this. One of their bits when they're making fun of other podcasts is that people go, well, for me personally, we've done that a shitload this episode. We need to stop that. We go. Just
because of Red Letter Media?
No, it's just
because we're building into Red Letter Media.
We're building into what they're making fun of. We don't want to do that.
There's a whole nother subsect of people who have tropes, and there's the people who make fun of
Or
tropes.
I just wanted to point out that it was funny that it was a running bit they do and that we independently did it.
I think that means we're successful. We're so good.
Yeah, is that what that means?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
So yeah, we'll be back next week with our Iron Man 2 thoughts and impressions. And
I'm looking forward to
Get out your fucking checkbook! Is that right?
No, that was great. Thank you.
That's what I'm supposed to do, right?
Yep, that's exactly what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
Nailed it.
I'm looking forward to Thor that comes next.
Thor will be after Iron Man. So yeah, we'll be back on January 20th on twitch.tv/Chainsaw Ape with our live impressions of Iron Man 2, and then the following week for Thor. So make sure you guys watch those movies and listen. And do us a favor and share this with your friends. On YouTube, like and subscribe. On Twitch, hit the little heart follow button. And I think I'm done plugging us. Anything else?
I ain't done plugging you, baby.
Thanks for being here, Joe Jr. and Bunami.
Yeah, for everybody who
And
watched it
Idify
live
as well.
Yeah,
Oh,
for anybody who watched it live, thank you so much. If you guys have any other feedback or anything for us, make sure you reach out to us and let us know. And that'll do it. And never forget, Baskin Robbins always finds out.
Very nice.
We're coming around to that soon.